Welcome to CWS Christian Writing and Speaking, an Elevated Missions Prep Incorporated company. I'm your host, Jackie Wilson, and today's guest is a former practicing attorney, former compulsive gambler, ex offender, and also an author. He is the author of three books: Deal by Me, A Golden Opportunity Blown, A Self Evaluation, and Come Let Us Reason Together. He has experienced a lot in his life, many of them opposites, but he has grown to learn many lessons that he is utilizing now to inspire others. Let's welcome to the CWS stage, Reverend Dr. James W. Smith. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. And it's good to be on your show.
Yes, I'm excited because your life is truly a testament of second chances. And when people hear ex offender to lawyer, I didn't mention in the introduction, but you're also a former pastor of almost 32 years of a church in North Carolina. You've done a lot in your life. A lot of people want to know what happened, what's the background story, how did you go from being on the wrong side to the right side?
Everybody wants to know that. Everywhere I've been, I share my story. That's something everybody wants to know. Well, let me just tell you a little bit about it. I grew up like the average individual, small town outside of Lewisburg, North Carolina, which is about 30 miles north of Raleigh, North Carolina. Very small, but actually my hometown was really about 10 miles outside of Lewisburg. But I grew up, went to high school, went to college, went to law school, and I finished law school on the combined program. So I have a degree in Bachelor of Science in Commerce uh, that I got when I also received 1 year of law school. When I graduated after I passed the bar, I started practicing in my hometown. And my hometown was I was the first and only African American lawyer to practice law in my hometown. I was the youngest African American lawyer at that time practicing in the state of North Carolina. So, I had some firsts, uh, but I got into gambling, started playing poker. And of course, as a result of playing poker, after about 10 years of practicing law, I committed a crime. And of course, I had lost everything. I lost my first wife, 5 years due to my playing poker. And I lost all the properties that I had accumulated, including my home. And I was down to zip. And I did something crazy. I uh, robbed a bank under the impression that I thought that if I just could get enough money to pay off all my debts from my gambling, and I could just get started back again and it'll all be over. Now, I know that's not the case. I know that that can't happen, but that was my thinking at that particular time. And so that's what I did. I was I was sent to Dorothea Dix Memorial Hospital for evaluation. Stayed at 3 weeks. Got out. Came back home, and of course, obviously, I couldn't go back to my law practice. So I was able to get those jobs. One with the service station, one at a supermarket. Or at the service station, I washed windows and pumped gas. At supermarket, I bagged grocery behind the cashier, while at the same time, family members, friends, former clients came in, and of course, obviously, this was a very humbling experience for me. And of course, after about 6 months, I think all this happened in July, but in January, the first Monday in January, I went to court and I received a 15-year sentence. I pled guilty. And of course, I spent 5 years in confinement, got out, and of course, knew what I had to do. My mom gave me some good information. She said, "Now, son, you're out. You can go and lie down in a ditch if you want to, or you can put your head in the sand, and all folk gonna do is come and put more dirt on you, or push your head further in the sand." I decided that wasn't going to keep my head in the sand. I wasn't going to continue to lie down in the ditch. So what I did was I decided to go back to school. Uh, I got my master's of divinity degree. I continued part time and received my doctorate of divinity degree. Uh, in the midst of all of this, I was called to the church that I pastored for 32 years, a little bit more than 32 years, really. And of course, in the interim, you know, I got married about 5 years after I got out to my lovely wife now. We've been married now for a little over 33 years, two kids, two grandkids, and of course, life is going well.
You've learned a lot. You said this was an humbling experience. Obviously, you didn't keep all this stuff to yourself because you did write 3 books to share with people about some of your experiences. Tell the people what they will find inside those books.
Well, the first book, which is Deal by Me, A Golden Opportunity Blown, the title represents my poker playing. And when you don't want your next hand, you say deal by me. Okay. So I, and that also represents it from my spiritual standpoint because I was saying I'm finished with it. Okay. So that deal by me. The Golden Opportunity Blog of that first book, I had reference to my law practice. I blew a golden opportunity, lost my license, not able to practice anymore. And so that was the title that I gave it. And so that first book really entails my life experience, my practicing law, my gambling, and of course, it gets a little into my call to the ministry, and of course, when I was called to my church. I didn't write the first one in the beginning to be a book. What I did with the first one, I wrote it while I was confined, and it was more like just a kind of therapy. I was just writing down how did I get myself in all of this? What happened? How did I let all of this happen to me? And just kind of writing it out. And so I had accumulated, I know, probably 300-400 pages of just writings. But when I got out, I was, talking with folks, and they would, I was sharing them what I had, and I'd written about it, and some couple of people read it, and they said, "You need to put this in a book." That's how that book started. Okay, the second book I wrote during COVID time. I was just sitting down, nothing to do. I couldn't go to the church. We were out of the church for about close to 3 years. We obviously had service on Zoom, but I had a lot of time. Nobody won't do anything. So I just sat down and started reflecting again about what I learned from my experiences. Okay. And so I titled that book, Deal by Me, second edition, a self-evaluation. And in that book, I wanted to just really dive into my soul, as what did you get from what you went through? And it was very therapeutic. I have to admit, I came to the conclusion in the book, from the first book, I thought I was a compulsive gambler, but I, at one point, tried to contact nonprofit outside of Durham, in Chapel Hill, as a matter of fact, that was a very much like a gambling anonymous group. And I asked the director, could I like to come in and talk with the men because I had been a compulsive gambler. And so what he said to me, he said, "Are you still a gambler?" I said, "No," and it was all gone. I knew I wasn't gambling anymore. So I said, "No, I don't even have the urge for it. I don't want to." And so he said to me, he said, "Well, I don't know if the men would be interested in hearing your story, because we believe that once a compulsive gambler, always a compulsive gambler." I knew that was not me. I just knew that was not me. So I had to reflect on that. And so in the second book, when I talked about what I learned, one of the conclusions I came to is that I was not a compulsive gambler, but I was afraid to fail. Okay. I had been this outstanding lawyer for, almost 10 years in the area where I was. Everybody knew me. I had awesome connection. I had run for district court judge. And but this gambling just made me lose all everything that I had. And I saw myself going down and I was afraid to do that. So I came to the conclusion that I was afraid to fail. That's a part of the second book. It just kind of shares a lot of stuff that I went through, and I talk about different things. Things like the darkest hour was just before dawn. I talk about how you need to confront the source, and things like if you play with fire, you will get burned. So just a lot of different things that I kind of talked about and I shared in this book. So that's the second book. The third book I wrote was totally different. That's entitled "Come Let Us Reason Together." Now, the reason that I wrote that book was because in 1997, I have lots of lots of great experiences, and and frankly, what happened to me, I would say now maybe that's what the Lord wanted me to go through, because in 1997, well, during my pastorate, I became moderator of the association that my church is in. And in 1998, the president of the General Baptist State Convention, which is over basically all of the missionary Baptist churches in North Carolina, appointed me as moderator of moderators for the General Baptist State Convention. So I was over all moderators all over the state of North Carolina. And his specific request of me was to work with churches that had some conflict issues. How churches are. Got a lot of those issues. And so I started working all over the state. Churches would call me, pastors would call me, and that book is based upon that. So it has information about how to deal with issues, how to deal with conflict issues, you know, and I raised a lot of them that I experienced doing my work with the churches. So that's what that book was all about. Now,
Yeah, so you're
well,
helping people in a lot of different ways.
thank you, thank you. Uh, the last one, and it's not a book, but I do want to say this. I for the last 11 years, and I only stopped when COVID came in. People were wondering, would they ever get back to doing anything with the state bar? And I happened to have been down in Henderson, North Carolina, and I talked with another lawyer that I knew when I was practicing, and he said to me, he says, "Man," he said, "why don't you try to do continuing legal education for the state bar?" He said, "I think lawyers would love to hear your experience and what you've gone through." There was only one other lawyer in the state who was doing CLE who had been disbarred, only one, and he was a white gentleman, but his was for embezzlement. So I told my friend, I said, "I don't know if I can do that because my crime was a violent one, and I'm just not sure if the bar would accept me." He said, "Oh," And so I came back and I was talking to my wife about it. And she said to me, she said, well, you got nothing to lose. You don't have your license anyway. So what can you lose? It made a lot of sense. So I applied to and uh, they told me that I would hear from them about maybe, I think it was about 3 weeks, they said. But anyway, 3 weeks came. I didn't hear anything. So in my mind, I knew it was this image that the bar had. All they could see was an African American guy who has robbed the bank, and that was not a pretty image. Okay, so what I did, I put on my three-piece suit. Got me a good haircut. I was dressed to kill. And I went over to the state bar office and I told them that I'd like to speak with somebody in the continuing education area. The lady came downstairs and she saw me and talked to me, and I could tell right there the demeanor had changed. And when she talked to me, she said, Dr. Smith, you will hear something from us within the next 3 days. Sure enough, next 3 days came. I got a letter saying I had been approved as a sponsor of of, of continuing legal education, teaching ethics, mental health, and substance abuse to the lawyers across the state of North Carolina, white and black. I was one of only two. I was the African American lawyer, and the other gentleman was named Jim Blackburn. He was the white lawyer. Only two who had been disbarred that the lawyer did. And I did it for 11 years. Would probably still be doing it now if COVID had not come in. I just got tired of traveling. That's my story. Bye.
I think a lot of people want to know what took you down that road to gambling. I know you said you had a fear of failing. Uh, do you think it is all of the expectations and not feeling like you had anyone to truly talk to about your feelings? Is it the pressure that you feel like you placed on yourself, being the only one in so many aspects?
It's a very good question. And the way I would answer it is I think it was probably all of the above. It was, uh, I felt like I did put a lot of pressure on myself. I also felt that I had gotten myself in a position where I know so many people were looking up to me, and it seemed that I had let them down. And I was trying to recoup. Now, I realize now that that wouldn't have happened. Even if I had got by with it, I would have paid off debts, but I would have still been gambling. You understand what I'm saying? So I know that wasn't the case. But I would say that basically all that you said was probably, so I don't think I could eliminate either one.
And I think this is a very important point, and I'm really praying that people are listening to this. And it's something that I read in your bio, the importance of facing what it is that you're dealing with. Because a lot of people don't understand that if you're not facing it, it is going to come out in some type of way. Now, yours happened to be gambling that eventually led to crime, but it could be overeating, it could be sexual sins. It could be a gamut of different things. And you may be thinking, well, what I'm doing is legal, but you're still not facing what it is that you need to face. And eventually it's going to spill over and affect other areas of your life. What advice would you give to people on how to start dealing with those issues that they are facing that are difficult, where they don't feel like they can really talk to people about?
I think you listed one that I think is very important, and that is you have to confront the source. And that's a chapter that I have in my second book. You have to confront the source. If you don't do that, then it's all for naught. And then and then you have to kind of accept responsibility. If you whatever it is that you're going through, you got to just leave it alone. Uh, and I tell people that you got you can't, well, let me put it like this. You you shouldn't let your circumstances be an excuse. You messed up, you messed up, and so you're trying to now uh, move ahead, put it all behind you, but you're going to have to deal with it. You're going to just have to confront it. The best way I did it is I just sat down and took a good self-evaluation of myself. I didn't mind talking about it, and sometimes you gotta to get it out because we think we think sometimes we hold stuff in is better, but sometimes you just gotta share it. And when you start sharing, you find out that it's totally different than you think. A lot of people in my situation, I've had ministers to even ask me this. You'd be so many folk who never understood how I was able to uh, get called to a missionary Baptist church, a traditional missionary Baptist church, uh, and stay there 32 years. Okay, wasn't a real large church, but when I went there, we had membership of about 200. Average membership of about 100 that comes on Sunday. You know how that works. But I stayed at the church for 32 years. I did it because I was upfront. I I shared what I had gone through. I didn't try to hide anything. I let my experiences be a benefit to others. Because, as you said, many folk did not do what I did, but there are so many people who had other problems, dealing with other situations. And when I could tell them, what I went through and how I dealt with it, help. And I think they appreciated that, and we had some of the best services. I'm even right now, for my retirement, I'm working with my home church. My home church has called me as an interim pastor because they lost their pastor and wanted me to work with them until they get a new pastor. That's home. They knew it. They know everything about them, you know. But yet the deacons called me to come in and work with them. And you have to not boasting, but you really have to feel pretty good about that. You say, uh, something I've done must be of help to somebody. And and I feel good about that. I try not to let it swell my head, but I feel pretty good about it.
Yeah. I would say it would be something pretty good to feel about. So I want to go back to something you said your mother said, and I think it hasn't been fully vocalized, but one of the things she said to you was, "Don't be ashamed." That's what she was saying. You did what you did. You paid the price for it. Now move forward, but don't move forward in shame. And that is what I'm really seeing as one of the overarching things that's coming out about your life, is that you're moving forward and you're not doing it in shame. And as we know, shame is from the enemy. So it comes to a point where it's like, don't hold on to the shame, share the story so that you can help somebody else.
I've never held back from it. And I'll be honest with you, I had some people to wonder why, you know. And number one, it's cleansing. That's one thing about it. It's cleansing because it's out. You don't feel it's something about it that makes you feel as if I don't have to deal with this anymore. I'm not holding anything else. Everybody, you either accept me now as I am, or you don't. But it's not bothering me anymore. When I tell people that, if I have ministers friends, we talk, and giving an example. I was down in Rocky Mount just Tuesday, and there was a couple other retired ministers, and we all were eating, and we meet every once in a while just to kind of chat, talk about different things, and they were talking about tomorrow Monday that William Barber was heading up when he was here in North Carolina. And I told William Barber, I said, William, I would come and march with y'all, but I got a felony and I don't want to be marched. They put me in jail. I won't ever get out, and everybody's laughing. Who ministers? You understand what I'm trying? So it's, I talk about it and they understand it but they know who I am now. And that's the good thing about it, and we all respect each other and we move on.
Yeah, I love it. Great lesson for anybody that's listening. Tell me what's next for you.
Well, gee, I retired now and I'm doing my podcast. And one thing I said to even some members of my church family is that I'm retiring from pastoring, but I don't want to retire from the ministry. So my podcast now is about encouraging, inspiring, and transforming. Okay. So that's what I do. I try to publish at least about uh, 2 a week. And of course, as a matter of fact, I think I've got one coming up later today. But that's what I'm doing. And then I've also made myself available to, well, right now I just told you I'm serving as interim pastor. I didn't expect to do that. I never thought I would be doing back into the pastoring. But when my home church called me, that was kind of something I couldn't turn down. So, and I committed myself to kind of stay with them until they got a new pastor. I made myself available with other ministers in the area, pastors, when they go on vacations or they need somebody to come in and fill in for them. That's what I do. So that's all I'm doing, just sitting back, kind of relaxing and having a good time.
Good. Well, how can people connect with you and your books?
Well, they can connect with me through my website. My website is www.dealbyme.com. It's the title of my book, dealbyme.com. And of course, they can always, through the contact page, send me any message or whatever they want. They can purchase my book from my website. They can go to Amazon.com and get any of the books. They are all there on Amazon.com. My first book, you can get it through Amazon.com, but it won't show up. That was done through Author House, but you can still order it through Amazon.com. I have T-shirts that individuals can also order. And I'll show you what that looks like. That's a T-shirt.
Encouraging, inspiring, transforming.
All of that is on my website, and so I'm promoting it, and I talk about it, and hopefully, I will encourage somebody, inspire somebody, and hopefully transform a life.
I'm sure you will, especially through our show. I'm sure you will.
Thank you. Thank
you. What is the final word that you have for the people? What action can they take today that will help transform their life for a better tomorrow?
One thing I always tell people is to stay focused. Most of the time, we know where we want to go and we're on the right path, but something gets in our way. And I tell people that if you do that, then if you take your eyes off the prize, that's can be your downfall. So stay focused, know where you're going, practice humility, and be upfront, honest, and truthful. All of these are attributes that you have to maintain if you want to make it in life. That's very important.
Love it. Love it. CWS audience, here at the end, he just gave us a get out of the boat experience. He said, stay focused, because that's when you start the downfall, when you're not focused on the goal ahead. You know where it is that you're going. These distractions will truly get you off track. if you allow them to get you off track. Deal with the things in your life. Have that come to Jesus meeting with yourself and confront the things that you are struggling with. And if you don't feel like you can handle it on your own, talk to someone that's trusted. Maybe that is someone who is in the mental health field who can help you move past the struggle that you're facing. But talk with somebody. You don't have to allow those things to overtake your life. You don't have to live in shame. Shame is of the enemy, and he wants you to stay there. So he'll keep bringing up things and allow people, bringing people into your life who will keep reminding you of those things. But you take that test and you turn it into a testimony. You share that story, and maybe you can make a little money off of it too. But just embrace your experiences, who you are, what you've been through, and utilize it to help change other people's lives. You don't have to stay where you are. You don't have to be off track. You truly have a purpose and a calling on your life, whether you know it or not. Everything that you go through, God wants to use it for his glory. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. And until next time, beautiful people, God bless.